Hello, welcome to Professor Skye's Record Review, the only first listen new music review show hosted by a French professor immediately after leaving the gym. It's episode 233, and I'm reviewing the new Eminem album. The last time I reviewed an Eminem album, it was episode number 1. If you're interested in my thoughts about where I've come from and what my relationship is to Eminem and why he's so important to this channel, stick by at the end, because I'll do a little personal reflection. But until then, let me actually talk about the album. If you hear some ambient sounds, my wife is cooking borscht. I didn't make that up. I don't know what borscht is. If you know what borscht is, put it in the comments and pat yourself on the back. So, often when I review new albums, I review about 3 to 4 new albums a week, and I try to come up with little 3-word sentences for the thumbnail. And often it's a struggle. And often I suck at it and come up with really boring thumbnails that result in 0 views. But for this one, I've had it clear from the very start. And you've already seen it if you've clicked on this video. Don't hate, appreciate. Now, I don't know who coined that stupid term, but I actually like it quite a bit. The idea is this. It's very easy to hate on stuff. It's very easy to hate on Eminem, okay? There's a lot of things about this album, which I'll get into, which are pretty weak. There's a lot to almost everything that Eminem does that's pretty weak. But to focus on that is to so fundamentally spite your nose to save your face. I don't know what that expression is either. To focus on hating what Eminem does badly as opposed to appreciating what he does well is missing the glory of existence. There is nobody who does what Eminem does. I love rap music. I love the conversations, top 5, all that. I don't even put Eminem in the top 5. I don't think he belongs in the top 100. I don't think anybody does what he does. His similes are so well made. His wordplay is on another level. Every verse he comes out with, every album he comes out with, don't hate, appreciate. Just listen to it. Spend time with it. This is a guy who's talked about killing himself and overdosing for the past 20 years. He hasn't. So just every time something falls out of his mouth, even if it's hateful or weird or played out or with Ed Sheeran, Jesus, I'll get to that. Just appreciate it and take it and add it to the gigantic book of amazing and unique. By the way, the word unique is used a lot. It really means one of a kind. It doesn't mean pretty rare, it means one of a kind. Eminem is truly unique, and we need to appreciate it. Just one example, I'll get into some others. At one point, he refers to himself as the liquid plumber, and even Dre knows. So it's like playing on the word Drano as being another competitor to the brand Liquid Plumber, but then referencing his producer and mentor, Dr. Dre, saying Dre knows. This style of wordplay, while often silly, and usually without any real meaning or content, is a joy. It's just a joy to appreciate, a joy to listen. I may be going far here, but I think he's the closest thing that rap has to Jimi Hendrix. By that, I mean Jimi Hendrix, if you watch him play, and wow, if you haven't watched Jimi Hendrix play, don't watch my videos anymore. Don't watch any videos anymore. Just watch Jimi Hendrix for 3 hours. You'll lose your mind. The way he plays guitar, it's as though he's breathing. He's not thinking. He's not doing anything. He is so effortless with the frets and his fingers that it seems unfair. That's kind of how Eminem is with the English language. I'm going pretty far here, but I think he earns it. Now, when it comes to this album, he drops a reference to Tom Brady. Longtime viewers of the show will know I'm slightly obsessed with Tom Brady as an idea and as a player and the fact that we're the same age. But I think it's a pretty good metaphor for himself because so much of what he raps about is about being disliked. But part of the reason that he's disliked is that he's so good and he's been so good for so long. Except he takes an opposite tack, right? Like, if you watch Tom Brady, he's just like, hi, the pyramid is power, and I'm just positive about the next game. And he's got this whole mask on his face about how little he cares about what people say about him. Whereas Eminem feeds on this hate. The thing I was afraid of with this record is that it would be a little bit like Kamikaze, where it'd be mostly about how great he is and how no one appreciates it. I thought it was mostly going to be, I'm still here. I'm still great. Is that garlic? Onions?
Onion?
It's onion. Whatever it is, it smells really good in here. It smells better than the word borscht would indicate. So I was afraid that the entire album is just going to be about being an old timer. Even if it were, you would have great lyrics like, if I am half as good as I was before, I would still be twice as good as you will ever be. It is just awesome. I mean, but it's not. And I'll talk about what the album is about. It's about a lot of things. I think if I want to maybe draw you into one of my more interesting conclusions, which I'll get to soon, I think this is a true Detroit Democrat. What? I'm going to explain what I mean by that. There's a lot of Democrats from Michigan. There's a real blue-collar thinking that comes from being left-wing and blue-collar at the same time. And I think Eminem represents that, despite the fact that he's a multi-millionaire rap star. Let me just take you through, though, before I get to that bigger theory, let me just throw out some of my favorite lines from this. Just things I just love about this album. At one point he says that he balls like Jay. But then, you're not like Jay-Z, like Leno. Because he has a huge man chin. A huge man chin. Because Eminem has a big chin. Jay Leno has a big chin. A big man chin. It's funny, it's clever, appreciate. At one point he just makes reference saying they're like toy soldiers because they wind up on their backs. Just come on. That's such a good line. Like, you hear it and you just go, toy soldier. Oh, I get it. And he just spits these out. He spits them out so fast, I was on the elliptical, I couldn't type them out as quickly as he was saying them. He talks about having all these eyes on him and saying that his pupils are getting cornea. Like his pupils, being his students in the rap game, are getting cornier, but then playing with a homonym of cornea and the eyeball. So listen, I get it, all right? This is not the best rap album of the year. It's not going to be. It's not going to be the best rap album of the decade. It's probably not going to be in the top 10 rap albums this year, if I have to predict. If you want to listen to a great rap album, listen to Griselda, okay? Griselda is 1,000 times better than this album. But my God, the verses this guy drops are just insane. I mean, there's one track, he talks about being like a broken faucet. And if you're listening to rap a lot these days, you're used to talking about broken faucets because of my drip. But he's not talking about a drip. He says he's going to get the drop on you. Beautiful. And then later he talks about rapping behind the beat and how rappers don't know how to do it properly. And he actually talks about rapping behind the bass and the snare. And then in a sort of performative act, he actually does that at the same time. He is really smart, despite the fact he often raps about so many dumb things. Let's talk about why it's bad. Let's talk about why it's not that good. I mean, it's a really long album. It's 1 hour and 4 minutes. Basically, all the beats are mediocre. I think if you took all of Eminem's beats, like 10% of his beats are any good. Okay, no, that's not correct. 80% of his beats are good. 10% of his beats are great. You know, it's odd. I remember sort of back in the early 2000s when he was producing a lot of his own stuff, and everything just felt kind of like... It just feels like a vehicle, you know? It's like, it's like a beautiful diamond in a really dull setting, you know? But I wonder if that's necessary. If his lyrics and his wordplay and his fast delivery are so rapid, so necessary, so like the focus, that if the beats were better, it would make the music worse. I don't know. You want to know how this album is whack? Let me tell you one way it's whack. There's this like illusion of a theme, music to get murdered by. And he has Alfred Hitchcock, or an Alfred Hitchcock impersonator. I haven't done the research, I don't know. Put it in the comments if you know, or don't, I don't care. So you think it's going to be this like unified thing, music to get murdered by. Is this going to be another kind of gothic murder rap album? It's not. And the main time that Alfred Hitchcock comes on to speak, it ends up being an introduction to the track with Ed Sheeran. Once again, I don't know who Ed Sheeran is. I mean, I know who he is, but I don't know why he is. I don't know why he's everywhere. I can't quite figure it out. He's like kombucha or CBD. I don't know what these things are. They pop up out of nowhere. They're on every street corner, every mall. I'm never going to have a kombucha. Oh, whatever you do with kombucha, I'm not going to do it. And based on what I've heard of Ed Sheeran, I'm not going to do that either. I just know that this dude is everywhere. And everything he touches is a little bit worse for his presence. Anyway, so this track is like, it's just, this Ed Sheeran track, it's so bad. Like this, it's just like so clearly he's trying to make a pop hit. I didn't like his track with Rihanna from a couple years ago either. I feel like maybe once per album he thinks, all right, I'm going to find somebody who's really hot and make a pop track. And every time he does it, like I get it, it sells him records, it keeps him current, but it's not very good. I would say it's total garbage and don't even listen to it, but Eminem got me again. This weird misogynistic verse about picking up a girl in a club ends up being tied around the thematics of the state of Ohio. And it's clever, and it's funny, and it's interesting, and it's on multiple layers. So listen to it at least once. There's a lot more kind of lowlights. Like right after that is a track called In Too Deep, which is sort of like, you know what, I don't like this song. I don't like songs about infidelity. It's weird though because it's a song about infidelity that goes really deep into the mentality of an affair, of a long-term affair. Like, I almost feel like he was watching some Netflix show about, some affair and just decided to write a song from that perspective. So it's interesting from that angle. He's not just saying like, I slept with your bee or whatever, but another low light is a track called Farewell. Another in a long line of Eminem tracks that are all about toxic love. Toxic love, toxic love. Please, Eminem, grow up. I don't mean that like as a jerk, because you're older than me, but like grow up, like stop singing about toxic love. You've grown in so many other ways. Even though you talk about drug usage and stuff, it's very clear you're just a tourist. Like you're through that, I hope. Just enough for the toxic love. And then, the lowest of the low light, worse than 10 Ed Sheerans is the track No Regrets. Just any song about no regrets is just stupid and reminds me of men I don't like talking to. Let's get back to the good stuff. Probably my favorite track is Godzilla. Now this is interesting because this is with Juice WRLD, the recently deceased Juice WRLD. And it's funny because in some ways this is opposites attract. Juice WRLD just does the chorus and he is so bad at writing lyrics. Like he talks about being a monster and having like an ice road trucker and he's like in your Blockbuster. And he's so lazy with his writing. And Eminem is working his ass off and writing. He must have written like 10,000 words for this song, right? It's just insane, So you've got Eminem like, and then in the middle of the chorus you got like, and then Eminem comes back, but it completely works because Juice WRLD is the best at that thing. And Juice WRLD isn't trying to be Eminem. So many rappers, even if they pretend like they're not, are trying to be Eminem. Whatever Juice WRLD is trying to do, it is drenched in codeine. It is sleepy. It's sad. Maybe he's, tangentially related to Eminem in the terms that Eminem brought a lot of emotion to his rap, and so does Juice WRLD. But it ends up being this beautifully produced, excellent poppy track with just these opposites, the technical superiority of Eminem. And I thought about this. What is it that makes Eminem different than other rappers that do things like what he does? Because of course there are other technical rappers who go on these jags and have like multiple plays with words. I even, fell over myself last week talking about Fabulous and that song B.O.M.B.S., It seems like people do this. But what Eminem can do is he can mix it with his charisma. And you sort of either have it or you don't. It's kind of like, there's people who can play Jimi Hendrix solos note for note, but they're not Jimi Hendrix. They don't have that charisma. So this track, Godzilla, is so good because it's two artists who do completely rely on their charisma, even though it's completely opposite charisma, to make a track that is just excellent. I do really miss Juice WRLD. I only know 2 songs, the one he did with Brandon Urie and this one, but every time, just his voice is so good. He reminds me of like a young, who's that guy? Ty Dolla $ign, like a young Ty Dolla $ign. Like, I don't think I'd want to listen to anything he does by himself, but he has this ability to add something to a track. Another highlight is Ya Ya, which has a Busta Rhymes quote, features Q-Tip. It has Questlove on it. He gives a shout out to King T. And if you're paying attention, for episode 400, I'm going to be talking about King T's best gangster rap album that no one's ever heard. So stay tuned. In a way, this is kind of an OK Boomer, OK Xer song because it's talking about the way things used to be. But the track is very well produced. They put a lot of effort into this. But he constantly references, like Das FX and Wu-Tang and Ice Cube. But I'll give it to him. If you're an old head, if you've been in the game for so long, okay, take at least one song to talk about the old days and the way things are and make sure it's still good. The next track I want to discuss is one called Darkness. And I don't want to do this, but I'm going to say spoiler. If you haven't heard the song Darkness, skip ahead to the point in the video where this is gone, because I'm going to take this down, so you'll be able to see that behind me. Because Darkness actually has a spoiler. Here I go. So I was listening to the track, right? And I think this track is going to be huge. People are going to be talking about it for years and years and years and years. I had no idea. It's Friday. Album came out today. I don't read Billboard. I don't read Rolling Stone. I don't watch anything. I'm just an idiot French professor getting ready for a semester, right? So I'm listening to this track, and it's this whole kind of emo thing. It samples, Paul Simon, hello darkness, my old friend. I'm like, oh, that's a little cheesy. And it's all this guy talking about getting ready to go out on stage and murder, right? Because that's what you do. You go out on stage and you murder and you kill. And that's the terminology. Whether you're a rapper or a comedian, that's what you do. And he's talking about being in his hotel room and being just wrapped up in darkness and taking his pills and looking at room service and like looking out and seeing that the crowd isn't full. And like he just, what does he say? You can't murder a show where no one is at, And he's talking about, tearing up the stage, And I'm like, all right, fine, that's fine. Then he's going to talk about getting out, and it's going to be like, lose yourself. He's going to be talking about how he's in the groove, and he's a rapper, and he's happy. But then the references to Las Vegas that were made earlier in the song became chillingly clear. And I was like, oh. This is a song about the Las Vegas shooter from the Las Vegas shooter's perspective. What the hell? I mean, seriously, I was walking from, I was leaving my car, the song was on, walking to the gym, and my legs were cold, it was freezing, and my mind was literally blown. Because I had to recontextualize everything I just heard in this new way. So what's going on here? Do we applaud Eminem for this? Do we throw popcorn at him and tell him he's the devil? Is this just a necessary song for our times? I don't know. You do feel sympathy for this shooter. He talks about being angry at the dad he never knew. No, he felt like his dad who he never knew. He talks about the darkness that he feels inside himself. In some ways, this is glorifying a terrible person who murdered innocent people. But then at the end, he makes this little line about like, it doesn't matter anyways because it won't make a difference. Like, the shooter knows that killing the people doesn't matter, and he's right? It then becomes about gun control, but not overtly about gun control. It becomes subtly about gun control because nothing has happened. The bump stocks weren't repealed or whatever it is. The result of that shooting is nothing. And he then follows it with the musical, with the sounds of news reporters reporting the gun violence since then. So is this irresponsible? Is some shooter going to hear this song and be inspired? Is Toby inspired by the violence in this song to bark? It's okay. I can pause the video if he's... Okay, she's holding him now. He should be good. This is an interesting part, though, the video, right? Yeah, she's nodding. Okay, so, like, is this irresponsible for him to do? And I don't think it is. Obviously, Eminem can't get anyone to do anything. Eminem can't get anyone to be a shooter. He just can't do it, right? That's not the role of art. But I think what's important is that Eminem is returning to part of what makes him so important. And that is him being the voice of disenfranchised, poor white people. So the idea of Eminem as the voice of poor, disenfranchised white people is contentious and difficult. Now, I am currently developing a minor at my school in hip-hop studies, and part of the idea of it is that hip-hop is not about being African American. It is the voice of the voiceless. That's the function of hip-hop. That's why it's an international phenomenon and not a national phenomenon. And I think that's why it applies so well to Eminem. And the song I just discussed, which I won't spoil again, goes so deep into the mind of somebody who's so troubled that it gives you a kind of sympathy. But yet, what makes Eminem interesting, of course, is that he hates Trump, and he's gone on and on about Trump, and nobody has attacked Trump as viciously as Eminem has, which is where I came up with the concept of Eminem as a Detroit Democrat. You know, if you're a blue-collar person in the Midwest, it used to be that you loved your unions, that you loved people who looked out for your interests, public works, all that. That used to be what the Midwest was about, a lot. Only in the last, since Newt Gingrich and all that stuff has it really changed. But Eminem kind of holds on to that. And I think that's fascinating as a person who can make music that appeals to Trump voters and speaks to their anger while also going against Trump. Jesus, he's like Michael Moore. Now that I think about it, Michael Moore's another Detroit Democrat. Like, maybe we need more of these people in the world talking about their problems and their perspective. Maybe that might actually help to even out so it's not just East Coast elites like me looking down on Trump voters and Trump voters looking down on me. Maybe we need more people like Eminem. Other tracks kind of touch on that. One called Leaving Heaven, he actually mentions white privilege, which is interesting because he also talks about how he was prejudiced against for being white. So if you've studied anything with race or race relations, your little sirens are going like, oh, Jesus, don't try to pretend like white privilege doesn't exist. And he doesn't. But what he really does is he focuses on the misery that he had due to his class. He really focuses on it a lot. And his race, growing up in a poor black area and being white. And there's something universal and human about this, which I think is underestimated, just because of his misogyny and all of us talking about murder. And the album starts off with him slitting a girl's throat and throwing her in a grave, right? So, Jesus, right? But I think it's important, and hopefully, my hope is that he's reaching his old fans. So people who are my age, who are in Trump country, okay? Or whatever, or in a sort of conservative, angry mindset, can hear this music and relate to it and it sort of connect more to their humanity and a little bit less to their sort of curated rage. I don't know. Another track, Never Love Again, is an excellent example of how he can talk about drug usage in a way that I think is relevant. The first verse is all about, it's a love song. And it's all about how he can never love anyone but this girl. But each verse is about a different kind of addiction. The first one is about addiction to lean, to cough syrup. And that one's good, but the second verse is really just the most powerful. And that's about addiction to opiates. And I'm telling you now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, every high school in the country is going to be using this as a way of understanding the opiate addiction. Like the opioid crisis will be explained by this verse by Eminem. Just mark it on your little Skye predictor sheet, okay? It's so well done, and it's so clever, and it does that thing that English teachers love, where it's like, you think it's talking about flowers, but it's actually talking about dead soldiers. Ah! Like you think it's talking about love, but it's actually talking about opioids. And it's very powerful, and it's very real, and again, it's very necessary. He has a track about killing his stepfather, which I guess is good. I mean, I don't know. It's a little bit boring. He's talked about killing a lot of people in his family. I feel like maybe he's running out of family members. Like, I'm killing my second cousin. And then he allows himself to have a little bit of fun as well. Like a track called Marsh is about how great he is and how he's a Martian and how he's different. A track called Little Engine is maybe my second favorite track on the album. It's got a great kind of vintage chorus, lots of weird Eminem wordplay, like he refers to a hot dog and then he says, I'm that guy with an Oscar at Myers, because Myers is a food chain in the Midwest and he won an Oscar, I think. So he's the guy with the Oscar at Myers. was just great wordplay. He said that he was a ghetto boy, but now I ball out like Bushwick Bill. So Bushwick Bill was a member of the Ghetto Boys who had his eyeball shot out. So he's taking the verb, the noun, eyeball, and he's turning into two words, eyeball, B-A-L-L, eyeball out. Just beautiful. Track I Will is a great beat. One member of his crew raps as well as him. It's the only time anyone rises to his level. I don't know which one it was, but it's quite good. This actually has development in the production. There's like a hook. There's like some added harpsichord sounds at some point. Somebody did some production and was like, let's do something extra. And that's basically, and it ends with the outro that tries to make it pretend like the whole thing was unified, which it really isn't, but that's okay. Maybe it is unified in the way that it's just talking about what's inside his head and what he's thinking. Now, just to put a bow on the whole thing, not my dog bow, but a bow on the whole thing, the first episode I did was episode number 1 on Kamikaze. The reason that I started this show was, there's 2 reasons. But the main one was that I had a lot to say about Kamikaze. And my only outlet was talking to my Facebook friends, who are mostly friends from high school and like Star Wars collectors. So I didn't really have like a dialogue. I had a lot of thoughts. I thought they were good thoughts. I'll put a link here. I don't know if the video's any good. I won't watch it. Jesus, my first video. It's probably terrible. Go ahead and watch it if you want. But like, I needed to get it out there. So in a way, I think I was inspired by Eminem in his sort of fearlessness and just the need to get it out there. But then also, I was fascinated by the idea of making something that's always positive and trying to make something that isn't negative ever. I mean, okay, I said a lot of bad things about this album, but the thesis of my show is listen to more music, buy more music, enjoy more music. There's more good music out there, you have to find it. So I started with Eminem. Anyway, I don't know if that was interesting. It's interesting to me. So hopefully I will review him in episode number 233 plus 232. 500 and... It doesn't matter. I can't do math. All right. Well, until next time, where I'll review something else for Toby. There's the camera.